This is the May 14th Helm developer meeting. The standard disclaimer, this is a CNCF uh, group, so the CNCF code of conduct applies. Please be nice to each other. And if you don't want to be recorded, jump off now. I think that's the gist of it. Jump into the announcements. Last night, yesterday, the minor release of 4.20 and 3.21 were both shipped. Thanks, George. I haven't seen that. So yeah, there's that. Karen.
Sure, I can just go. Uh, I found out that there is signups for the Cloud Native Theater at KubeCon. I don't fully know the details of this because I didn't walk by last time, but I think they have like a kind of demo-y stage area by the booths at like the project booth pavilion at KubeCon. So I don't know if anyone in this group is interested in doing like a talk here. These are, I guess, yeah, it says lightning talks, tutorials, or sessions, but it's on the show floor as opposed to like in the rooms, like the breakout rooms at KubeCon. So I sent a link if anyone wants to propose anything. The deadline is the 22nd, which is next week. So yeah, that's it.
Do you remember when, just around my own laziness, when KubeCon NA is?
It's like the second week of November, around like November 9th. Yeah.
Thanks. All right. Well, there is nothing for discussion. So this may be a very, very short meeting. Anybody have anything?
I might have something. Um, Something I was looking at. I was preparing it for next week, but maybe I can just give a preamble. So I'm looking at I was thinking through the chart V3 releases, or well, releases that contain chart V3 charts and how they would work post um, removing the feature flag. So if I have an install, a deployment which has chart v2, and then I upgrade to chart v3, and I'm using Helm 3, right? The releases will be there in the release history. How would Helm 3 and also releases of Helm 4 before the feature flag is removed, how would they behave? How should they treat those releases? And what's the UX there? Because then there are a few failure modes. When you think of Helm 3, it just won't pass a chart v3. Helm 4 before removing the feature flag, so basically any Helm 4 version to date will pass chart v3, but there's this functionality that just won't work given that we're introducing breaking changes. So the question there is, what's the UX? How, once you roll back, how should we handle that? How has it been done in the past? Like say Helm 2, Helm 3, how did that work?
I don't remember. Seems like a lifetime ago.
Helm 2 to 3 from memory was a distinct process. I don't know if there was a distinct rollback process either. Um,
There was definitely no rollback.
okay, well that answers that. I think part of the question, Evans, was what happens if you say deploy do you set your environment variable to enable the experimental feature, deploy a chart v3 chart over your chart v2 chart, and then something breaks, and then your rollback process tries to roll back with Helm, which doesn't have the environment variable set, so therefore it doesn't know about chart v3 and therefore can't roll back. I would say this is entirely equivalent to like if you if you start with an older version of Helm for the rollback, which is
Mm.
doesn't have chart v3 included in it, like it we we just have to document that there's going to be a limitation. If we think there is a rollback path between v3 back to v2, then we probably should enable this.
It uses the same storage, so you should be able to, because it's mostly just reapplying the old resources, deleting things, cleaning up.
So the object stored, which is fortunate, the object stored won't change. So that's not going to change. Or rather the format, because it's just a map of raw bytes. So the storage itself, the storage artifacts in SQL or in the secret, that doesn't change. It's when you once you pull it out and you unmarshal into types that Helm 3 won't understand, and in Helm 4, you can unmarshal it, but then the behavior might be something that is not supported. So there's that transition between, and then we have the promise that chat v3 is out for Helm 4, but then how does it behave with before and after?
I do think, well, I'd be cautious on assuming that the storage format won't change because, say, if we do levelization and store multiple charts, so right now Helm charts v2, everything just puts this is one set of manifests. If there's groups of manifests and we change the storage format to represent those groups, then we'll change the storage format. So I wouldn't directly make that assumption. I would say for experimental, you may just deny being able to upgrade a chart v2 chart and say like I mean it depends on how on the risks. Web, I'll let you. Sorry, you did raise your hand and
Yeah, I was gonna say web now.
What's the exact scenario here? We've got a Helm 3 v3 chart installed and we're trying to roll it back. Which Helm are we using to roll it back? Helm 3 or Helm 4?
Well, that's the thing. It could be either because users I may install a Helm 3 and then someone else shows up and they're operating on the same cluster with an older version. So, well, the easy fix is, if it's Helm 3, we'll probably add some changes to Helm 3 to just don't do anything, forbid any operations. Now, if you're in Helm 4, then there's a pre-feature flag and post-feature flag sort of thinking there that we'd need to.
So using Helm v3 to roll back from a Helm v4 installation doesn't sound tenable to me. So I think we're free to put restrictions in on that. But rolling back from a chart v3 to a chart v2 using Helm 4, that should work.
so
Um,
I'm not
Yeah,
entirely
so
convinced this is entirely true. And like, I can give an example. So we just introduced a Helm 4.20, the must to toml flag. So if you have a chart which uses, sorry, must to toml go template function. So if you have a chart which requires this function, the only version of Helm that will work with this chart is Helm 4.20 and up. If you deploy a chart and it works fine with Helm 4.20, and then you roll back with Helm 4.0, it'll
still work.
potentially fail.
No, it'll still work because it's not
That will
templating.
still work, yes.
The rollback isn't doing the
Yeah, sorry,
templating.
my,
so
my story is bad. If you try to use Helm 4.0 to install the chart, it'll fail because it won't understand the function. So there are idiosyncrasies to this compatibility promise. We should be try as much as we can, but like there's practical limits to be forwards and backwards compatible, of course.
What were you saying, Joe?
I was agreeing that yeah, wouldn't it would roll back because it's not actually templating anything there. It's just restoring the contents. As far as the rollback from chart 3 to chart 2, though, I mean, again, it goes back to depending on the storage, right? If you're, it's not so much the chart version, I think, as it is the storage version. So if we do a new secret storage version, then a Helm release prior to that wouldn't even know that version exists, so it wouldn't be able to restore that. Um, although it
So
seems like it might actually be able to find the latest of the old store if it hasn't rolled out of history yet.
yeah, and that's where I'm at with the version history. So how to treat that. So you mentioned storage version. It's something that I've been looking at and trying to think, do we really need to change it? Perhaps we might. Jury's still out. Um, but say we change or not change this version history, roll back, rolling back is possible to sort of perform these checks. But say an upgrade, right? Someone shows up, they're upgrading. Say you have a chart, it's gone to chart V3, and all of a sudden they've thought, hey, we don't want chart V3. Or on our new chart, they release a new version with chart V2. I don't know why someone would do that, but say that happens. And then your next upgrade has a chart V2 chart that's being installed on top of a chart V3 chart that's being installed on top of vice versa, chart V2 on top of a chart V3. So a few combinations there that are failure cases that I'm
I mean,
still grappling
I,
with.
I do think we are free to put restrictions on where it just doesn't make sense. Like if you have a chart v3 release and then you try
Mhm.
to upgrade to a chart v2 release, we can just say no, this is an error. uh,
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
but if we think this makes sense, I do think we should stick restrictions on places where it will break weirdly, like the scenario that Joe mentioned, where if you upgrade to a chart v3 chart and then use an older version of Helm and you try and roll back, and it rolls back way back in history because it doesn't know about the chart v3 releases, so it just doesn't find them. That like we should actively try hard to prevent weird weird failure cases,
Mm.
in the sense that maybe when you install a chart v3 chart, you upgrade to a chart v3 release object, and so it's just completely invisible to Helm, which doesn't know about chart v3 charts. I think like as long as it's an opt-in behavior, then I think it's fine uh to be incompatible with older versions of Helm,
Yeah.
and we can't allow foot guns to to blow up people's production environments.
We probably should get this all documented in a HIP because it sounds very complicated.
Yes.
Mm. That's a
Pardon my ignorance, but is the Helm chart version obvious to the Helm user? Don't they just grab a chart and, install it, create a release from it?
Yeah, it won't be obvious to a user. That's
So,
information that a chart author would would care about, but a user, no.
so building restrictions around the chart version is probably not going to produce a good user experience. I mean, I think it's reasonable for us to say, no, if you're using Helm v4, then, you know, the following restrictions apply. Like you can't use Helm v3 after you've used Helm v4 or something like that. Those restrictions make sense. But to say to the user, because of this particular chart you picked, now you're stuck, seems like a bad user experience.
That is a good call out. So are
I
you
wouldn't
saying the restriction cut to users would be the Helm version, right?
Right.
I would say
And by
ideally,
extension, that means that there is, since Helm v3 doesn't support chart v3, the safeguards come in that way by if you've used Helm v4, then there may be restrictions on what you can do with Helm v3 after that. So that all works, I think. But to tie the restrictions to the chart version directly is the user doesn't know about that.
Mm.
I would agree. I think we need to document like what trade-offs. Like it's also very hard to make forward progress if you can't have some sort of change. uh, so we just need to understand really how it's going to impact users. And if
I mean, a
yeah,
simple answer would be throw a warning or throw an error, and you gotta override that to actually make it an upgrade of that nature.
Well, I think the sequence of customer has an existing cluster, they want to install a v3 chart. If they try to do that with Helm v3, then obviously that fails. So they get Helm v4 and they install it with v4. And then if they decide they want to go back to Helm v3, then they have to roll back using Helm v4 because that's how they got there. And then once they've rolled back, then they can proceed to use Helm v3 again.
Yeah.
And yeah, the issue is all driven by the chart version, but none of that is available to the customer. The customer just sees Helm, the Helm binary's response.
yeah, the software engineering complexity here is that chart v3 doesn't exist yet, even in Helm 4 in a usable sense. Some of the infrastructure components, like the way to make it work, exists in Helm 4, but as a practical implementation, it does not.
So for
Uh,
instance, if we roll it out in 4.5 and a customer and a user upgrades a chart to a chart v3 using 4.5, but then they find a bug in 4.5 and they want to go back down to 4.4, that's that's the niggly bits.
Right. They would need to use 4.5 to roll back, and they would have to somehow avoid the bug that they hit. And then once they've rolled back, then they can proceed to use 4.4.
Right. But there probably should be, I think there should be some sort of at least a warning, if not an error that you have to override when you go from a chart v2 install to a chart v3 install. That way you consciously are making the change with the understanding that you're now stuck until you roll back.
either a warning or you have to you have to add a command line flag to enable it, uh,
Right.
or something. But if we think there's going to be a large number of foot guns between V2 and V3, particularly on the rollback process, that may not be obvious to the user, then we should probably deny going from V2 to V3 without a sufficiently good user experience to ensure that they
Mhm.
understand the constraints. Or in the early days of Charts V3, we just don't allow this until we have good stories around the tooling or whatever's needed to.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Hmm. I'll probably, yeah, so I'll have a write-up of anything that comes to mind with regards to foot guns and combination of operations on charts between chart v2 and chart v3. And yeah, and perhaps maybe a follow-up, either a hip. Well, there's a chart v3 hip. It's still in draft. I don't know what's the actually I've never had to update a draft hip. Is this a play? Is this a good time to sort of think of it's not been released, it's still in draft. Maybe I could update that hip.
Yeah, that's
Um,
pretty
yeah,
logical.
rather than creating yet another new hip. Cool. All right then. Yeah, thanks for your thoughts. And yeah, I'll look into it and get back to the team.
Sounds good. I'll move on. Any shout outs that aren't listed?
Yeah, George Scott for making the release. Yeah, I know it. I think you've done it twice now in a row. So, Joe, were you involved? I think I saw your.
I was going to, but then I got paged because I'm on call this week.
Right. Okay, cool. Yeah, so yes, just that. Good job.
Speaking of new releases, I was surprised that there's a Helm 321. I wasn't expecting that. Are we expecting to have any more feature releases of the V3 line?
I forget the cutoff date. Is it this one or is it the next one? I should probably document on the release notes if it's the last V3 release.
I think it's a year. I mean, the last release would be a year. Oh, you mean the feature release? Oh, right. Yes,
Right.
that's
I
like
didn't
6
think
months, right?
Yeah.
The releases page says that 322.0 is the next feature release, and that it'll have
Yep.
support for Kubernetes 137.
I just can't remember. No, I have to go look at the. Yeah, good question. It was not a. It was a very focused process to get it working.
And I know the release page is more or less automatically generated, so those things don't work well on transitions.
Maintaining Helm 3. Helm 3 will receive bug fixes for 68 months following the release of Helm 4 and security fixes for the 1 year from the day Helm 4 is made. So technically, there probably shouldn't have been a feature release of Helm 3. Somewhat easier from the release process just to cut a new release. We'll discuss as maintainers, I think.
Maybe we can take it on Slack.
Yep.
Moderator for next week.
I won't be here.
I could.
Okay.
I could next week.
What am I doing next week? I always get to this part of the thing and I have to look at my calendar, and by the time I looked at my calendar, everything's already taken. um There it is.
So
21st. Oh, yeah, I'll be there. I'll do notes. I think I can do notes. I'll try to do notes.
yeah, thank you.
Anybody besides Evans for PR review?
Yeah.
I'll be able to do a few.
Oops.
Oh, and thank you, the person who
issue.
did notes. I'm not sure who did it.
I'm not sure either. It was anonymous.
Yeah.
All right. And that's not either. And that is everything. Thank you all, and have a good rest of your day. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye all.
Have a good one. Bye.